The story begins with a crash car, and someone asks whether or not they should save their boss. He's performing CPR, but he's unsure if he actually wants her to come back to life. This is because she made him work under the 996 schedule. Basically, you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. And that's why, watching her die, he wonders if what happened to her is just karma accumulating. He starts to lift her, but wonders if at least helping her now might earn him some good virtues. He moves toward her sweet lips when suddenly, a golden light descends from the heavens and enters the woman. The protagonist complains that if she dies, he won't know who to demand his labor rights from. At the same time, he says he never imagined her lips would be so soft and sweet. At that moment, she opens her eyes. The protagonist is blushing as she asks if he's looking to die. A system message appears, stating that he successfully startled the Empress and has earned the ability of divine appearance and a golden shield with 31 uses. The protagonist doesn't know where this system voice is coming from as a leg approaches him. They look like he was going to get kicked, but instead, he's being tortured in a cruel manner. He resolves it with jujitsu and starts running from this dangerous boss. She then says he'll have to face divine punishment, but the protagonist is confused and asks what's going on. He tries to explain to her that she just fainted because she hit her head and asks what she thinks she's doing. Lin finds it strange that she can't use her true energy. Being crushed in a cruel way, our boy says she better go to the hospital, especially since the ambulance won't arrive quickly. He still needed to return to work, but it would be nice if she paid extra for everything he'd done. However, Lin is staring in her hand, confused, not knowing where she is or why it seems all her energy has disappeared. Some time passes, and we are at the protagonist's home. He was arriving from a tiring day at work and wanted the rest. As soon as he enters, he finds his chubby friend in his natural habitat and asks if there's any food left. However, the friend only asks if he was drained by the evil boss, but suddenly, his friend seems startled and drops the can he's holding. The protagonist, confused, asks what the problem is. The boss had entered the house and asked if this cage was what he called an apartment. The protagonist wants to know what she's doing there, while the chubby friend says he should give notice before bringing a girl over. However, the boss is confused and says that if he's not careful, he'll suffer divine punishment. The friend is also confused when suddenly she grabs Lewis's hand and tells him to come along. Seeing that she's covered in blood with torn clothes, the friend assumes they're engaging in some forbidden fun. Outside, our boy tells her that despite being her subordinate, she can't keep cutting to his rest time. However, Lin says that based on what he said, he seems to be her disciple. She explains that she's an empress from the underworld who cultivated for over 3,000 years to ascend to the realm of humans and gods. And that's why she wants to know where they are and why she can't use her innate energy. Lewis is confused, wondering if she's crazy. However, he's not normal either and mentions that since Earth's emergence, he's heard of some cultivators. But that's extremely rare, and as far as he knows, the two of them are just normal people. However, she reaches out, seemingly trying to strangle him. He begs her to calm down. Lin approaches and says he doesn't seem to emit the aura of the Justice Alliance. Our boy distances himself again from this crazy woman. But behind the trees, 3 suspicious men are discussing whether she's the right person. One of them says they need to make sure this looks like a robbery. However, Lin says she noticed someone listening in on their conversation and declares they deserve divine punishment. The 3 productive members of society emerge, saying they didn't expect to be discovered so easily. As soon as our boy sees energy in one of their hands, he wonders why cultivators want to take him down. The guy says it's a pity, but the young man saw things he shouldn't have and lunges at him, telling him to go to hell. However, that's when the golden shield he had received activates. The men are thrown against the tree and wonder how this is possible. The system appears again, saying that because he caused damage, he will receive some beginner cultivation packs. Yui is confused by these voices and Lin says she'll have to teach her disciples never to let an enemy escape alive, and that she will finish off these insects. She kicks her leg upward, making the man disappear, and says that sometimes physical strength is enough. Meanwhile, Yui realizes he has indeed received the little system. Moreover, it seems connected to this strange woman in front of him, who he's sure is not Miss Lin. Back at home, his friend decides to leave the apartment to him for the night and go sleep at an internet cafe, but he warns Yui to keep quiet to avoid getting scolded. The friend says he can't believe Yui brought this woman home, and Yui is thinking the same thing. He then tells her to come in, and make herself comfortable and apologizes for the mess. She sits down, saying she doesn't care about trivial things, even though her disciples tend to be strict. Yui goes to the fridge and asks her what this business is about being an empress who crossed worlds. If this is truly possession, then what happened to Lin Mia's body? She explains that she was in the middle of a tribulation to evolve when she got caught in a battle with the Justice Alliance. Suddenly, in the midst of the fight, she ended up here powerless. Yui says she's constantly mentioning this alliance and asks if, by chance, they are enemies. The Empress responds that those guys are a bunch of hypocrites pretending to be righteous, but are utterly disgusting. And since they want to fight her, they deserve to be turned into a river of blood. Yui, standing by the fridge, thinks this woman sounds more like a terrorist. He then gives her a glass of water to drink. She tells him to take a look at how this world works. He explains that in his world, there are things like magic and extremely advanced technology. The boss watches some Lolitas performing magic. She seems impressed by the power until Yui shows her spaceships blowing up planets. He warns her to be careful because there are people in this world who could destroy her and the entire planet with a flick of a finger. Staring at the images, she asks if that's really possible. He confirms it, saying she needs to understand that personal cultivation won't stand a chance against these forces. That's why she should never harm anyone, or the consequences could be very serious. She suddenly stands up and says the energy in his world seems very scarce. She places her hand on his forehead and says that the boy's aptitude is one of the best she's ever encountered. Yui suspects it must be something related to that system. Lin explains that if he were in her world in 300 years, he would reach an extremely high realm. Suddenly, his phone rings. He answers it while thinking all he ever wanted in life was to be an ordinary worker and make a little money. It turns out to be one of his colleagues saying that if the bugs aren't fixed by tonight, he doesn't even need to show up at the office tomorrow. Frustrated, Yui says he's not an artificial intelligence that doesn't need rest. Even Lin comments that working so late is no different from slavery. She mentions that in her world, once a bridge repairman did something similar, so she cut him into pieces. Yui is confused because she mentioned it so naturally. She then says that for something as simple as that, she was called a murderer, which doesn't make any sense to her. Turning around with a smile, she says it doesn't matter because those guys can't defeat her. Yui thinks to himself that she doesn't seem like such a bad person. He says she's at least a dystopian warrior, someone who fights for what's right. He then asks if her phone is still working because it's essential for daily life. She reaches into her pocket and questions if it's really that important since she doesn't feel anything magical about it. She hands him the device asking if that's what he means. The protagonist says that this expensive phone is really good because after the car accident, it's still intact. He then grabs her wrist, saying that now he'll show her how to use it. He takes her fingerprint, touches the screen, and explains that this is how you unlock a phone. However, Lin turns red, calling him a pervert who needs to be punished. In the next scene, a delivery arrives for him. The boss asks why the air smells so spicy. He invites her to eat some meat with him, and she watches curiously. She puts a piece in her mouth, gets startled, and says it's much less dangerous than she imagined. She comments that the meat feels like a dragon's breath. She asks if people really eat something like this, and he asks if they don't have anything similar in her world. She explains that they do use spices there, but nothing as spicy as this. He smiles and says it's amazing how different civilizations can be. He picks up what seems to be a Coke and says that even though it looks like poison, it'll help with the flavor, and it's quite tasty. He takes a sip to show it's not poison, and she drinks after him. However, she seems not to like it. Lin back and saying it gave her a strange sensation in her mouth and a tingling in her stomach. He warns her to be careful because if she drinks it all at once, she'll burp. Apparently, she burped. She says it has a bitter and sweet taste at the same time, which is very good. She imagines her disciples warning her about poison, but she replies that they shouldn't be afraid because this poison will only temper her body. By temper, she doesn't mean to grow stronger, and the disciples are all happy. He asks if it's really that good. She explains she was just reminiscing about some good stories from the sect. As he's about to put the food away, she grabs his arm saying he doesn't need to worry because she'll develop tolerance. Yui warns her to be careful because toxins can accumulate. Excited, she says that an empress can be afraid of something so simple. She takes another bite, when in the next scene, she's claiming it's not that spicy after all. A while later in her peculiar way, she asks what his favorite drink is. Meanwhile, he's telling her to stop being stubborn. His phone rings again, and he answers it. Obviously, it's another scolding from his boss asking why he hasn't fixed the bugs yet. The boss warns that if it's not done by tomorrow morning, he might as well never return. But Yui is confident since this guy answers to Miss Lin. He looks over and sees her. Even though the soul isn't the same, the body is. The scene shifts to the next day. Yui explains how everything works in a world. She responds that she already understands the elevator is a kind of staircase that moves on its own. The protagonist praises her and reminds her that everyone will call her boss Lin. She assures him she understands and tells him not to worry. However, as the elevator doors open, a blonde guy walks in complaining that Xiao Kiki is so cruel. He approaches her and says he heard about the accident, but is glad to see she's doing so well. He offers her the special breakfast he made just for her. At that moment, she turns to Yui and asks who this person is. He explains it's a guy named Gushinim, her former suitor. He's the son of the building's owner, and everyone thinks he's an idiot. The blonde guy turns to Yui and tells him that next time, he better leave her alone in the elevator since someone as smelly as him shouldn't be near her. But he's completely ignored as Yui suggests they hurry to the office. A chumpy guy comes running saying it's good that the boss has finally arrived. He advises her to fire Yui because yesterday he didn't finish the work and only badmouthed her. Yui leans into Lin's ear and tells her it was this guy who kept calling him in the middle of the night. Lin turns to the man and says that, as far as she knows, the one ruining her reputation is him. The man, embarrassed, says he would never do such a thing and insists Yui must have lied to her. She then says that she spent the whole night with Yui, so she knows very well who's lying. The blonde guy is utterly confused by this situation. The protagonist realizes she just poured gasoline on the fire, but the system detects that he shocked some nearby people and grants him a few martial arts skills. The scene shifts to the president's office. Yui tells her not to worry because getting through this login won't be difficult for him. As soon as he accesses it, he'll know exactly where she lives, and then she can go home. However, the Empress asks why he's helping so much. As far as she knows, the previous owner of the body wasn't very kind to him. Yui replies that he's a good young man who loves helping others, but in reality he knows that if he commands the Empress, he'll basically be an emperor. Plus, it'll be great to see that chubby guy get what he deserves. And finally, he can't abandon her to die after what happened yesterday. She remembers being attacked and asks what this business about dying is. But Yui completely ignores her and says the food the blonde guy brought is really good. He brings over the dish and asks if she wants some more. However, she remembers yesterday's spicy food and says that red dish must be too fiery. She rolls to the side, refusing to eat it. Sometime later, they leave the room and the chubby guy is holding 3 buckets, asking if he hasn't been punished enough. But she responds that he should already be happy to be alive. If he complains one more time, he'll earn 10 more hours on the clock. Shannon then approaches and asks why Yui was in her office. He warns her to be careful because that guy is poor, unrefined, and stinky. The Empress glares at him. Shannon apologizes, wondering why she's giving him that look. Yui then thanks her, saying that breakfast was delicious. He walks away with the boss, saying they have private matters to handle. Shannon obviously wants to know what those matters are. Yui remembers that he needs to shock people to earn system bonuses, while Shaman thinks Yui will have to pay for what he's doing. The scene shifts to a luxurious neighborhood at the Shanshu mansion. Yui compliments the Empress, saying she's getting the hang of using a phone. The door opens, and she says adapting to the new world comes naturally to her. Upon entering, the protagonist comments that the house is as luxurious as he expected. He talks about the kitchen appliances and says he'll teach her how to use them later. But she says there's no need since she's never cooked in her life. He then shows her the bathroom, and she remarks how strange it is to do all hygienic tasks in the same place. He explains how to use the toilet, shows her the shower, and she says she'll take a bath. She tells him to fetch some clothes, as she's sure the body's previous owner must have left some behind. As soon as Yui opens the wardrobe, he sees the hanging clothes. He remarks that he didn't expect the former boss to be this kind of person. He picks out some clothes, thinking at least he doesn't have to worry about whether they'll fit since it's the right person. Meanwhile, the Empress is in the bath, asking if he's prepared everything because she's about to catch a cold. Yui's concern, however, is something else. How is he going to teach her to wear modern clothes? He hands them to her and tells her to look at pictures and not put them on the wrong way. She retorts that he should stop nagging because she's not that dumb. Despite the questionable design, The only thing she finds strange is that this string is considered clothing. Meanwhile, Yui is in the living room watching TV. He calls her to watch a historical documentary. He plans to explain everything about human evolution and the creation of industries. She sits beside him, saying she's curious. However, some time passes and she's already asleep. The protagonist gets annoyed that she claimed to be interested but didn't last 10 minutes. He goes to cover her with a blanket, but she seems to sense that something slashes at it. Staying the blanket tear, he's confused, especially since she's still asleep. Slowly, Yui moves a sheet of paper closer to her, and she slashes at it again. He is shocked that she has such a sharp, alert system even while sleeping. He decides to move farther away since it seems a bit dangerous while she's asleep. He sits down and starts checking out the items he received from the system. Then he begins practicing one of the fist techniques he obtained. The name Heavenly Fist of Del sounded very pretentious. He assumes a few combat stances and feels as though his body is burning. His chest tightens and his heart feels, and it's about to explode. She approaches him and says that if he continues at this pace, he'll eventually die. She doesn't know exactly what he's doing, but the better the technique, the riskier it is. Even though he has talent, his foundation is very weak, which just stresses her out. Essentially, he's too weak. The poor guy feels crushed. She says that now that she's had a little nap, she's full of energy. Yui was about to comment on her attacks when his phone rings. It's one of the bosses asking for help with some company files. The protagonist responds that he had taken Ms. Lin home and would return to help soon. He tells her he'll try to come back at night, and she asks why he doesn't just stay by her side to help with the tedious tasks. However, he says that with great power comes great responsibility, and he needs to ensure the company doesn't fall into chaos. He then heads to the door, saying there's no reason to make life harder when she's calm, but she tells him to stop and comes closer. He's about to ask why when she steps even closer. Yui asks if this isn't a little inappropriate. She flicks his forehead and tells him to forget it and leave. The poor guy is left confused. Before closing the door, though, he says he'll order some deliveries for her, but asks her not to scare people. She reflects that now, without innate energy, she can't transmit her consciousness anymore. The protagonist has worked all day, and it's finally time to go home. The Satama of the office calls him president and suggests he treat everyone to dinner. The boy asks what this president thing is all about. Satama jokes that they all know he's close to President Lin. Yui tells them to stop exaggerating. He explains to everyone that she had a car accident, and he just happened to be nearby and helped her. If he really had something going on with her, he wouldn't be stuck there doing overtime. Nearby, Shaman overhears everything. He thinks this explains it all. It was just a coincidence. There's no way a loser like him could get close to Ms. Lin. Back at the mansion, we see the president when someone asks why the lights are off. The Empress turns with anger and says he'll have to face the consequences. However, the protagonist simply places food on the table and asks what's wrong. She freezes for a second before devouring everything, commenting that he should have brought it earlier. Shortly after, she's calmer and says that food without spice feels a bit bland. He tosses the leftovers in the trash, muttering that it's really hard to understand her. Lin then shows him her phone and says this thing must have something against her. She tried to order food with 2 taps, so why doesn't it work for her? He sits down and takes a look, showing her that she needs to scan her face to make a payment. While she's fiddling with the phone, he cleans the table, explaining that this is how money transfers work in this world. While tidying up, he notices some sheets of paper with meditation techniques written on them. He asks Lin if she can read that sort of thing, but the Empress reveals that she's the one who wrote it. He's shocked, and she remarks that of course she still knows how to use paper and a pen. The meditation technique integrates the body, energy, essence, and soul. It would help him grow strong enough to start learning some techniques. The boy feels embarrassed. He never imagined she'd go to such lengths for him. However, she winks and says there are conditions for him to accept her method. He has to practice the way she dictates. That's because natural talent alone isn't enough. He'll have 3 weeks to master the first chapter, or he'll disappear, because she doesn't keep lazy people around. Navi's trembling and awkwardly asks how long it usually takes disciples to master this. She says it's normally 4 weeks, but since he's talented, it won't be a problem for him. He starts reading a few pages about energy and pulse. It's about the circulation of energy rhythm returning to its true nature. Meanwhile, she wants a bite of something sweet and refreshing she's eating. She tells him he should eat first before practicing, but Yui is already spitting blue fire, saying he feels like his body has become lighter. The Empress is impressed that he mastered the first technique in just a few breaths. Even he's confused, asking if he really mastered it. But the Empress, now sitting on the counter, tells him that being able to gather energy proves he has. She tells him to breathe again and try to accumulate power. The boy looks like a vacuum, pulling in all the energy from the environment. Even she gets startled, asking what kind of monster he is. For impressing the Empress once again, he receives the instant step ability. He starts to think that every time he impresses her, her expectations will rise, making it harder and harder. As much as she was a good sheep, there's a limit to how much will he can shear. She asks why he's laughing, and he replies that it's nothing. Then he asks if she has any other instructions because he wants to get back to practicing. She says yes and mentions they have a very important problem. He asks what it is, and she wants to know why there's no Coke in the house. The poor guy is confused. Later, he says teaching her to use delivery apps at this moment is dangerous. But she's already drinking her Coke, saying she feels amazing. As he's leaving, she says there's something else she needs to remind him of. He should be more cautious because she's seen countless prodigies fall due to arrogance. He must always remember that there are mountains beyond mountains. But in the middle of her lecture, she suddenly starts hiccuping uncontrollably. She covers her mouth and says this body is strangely fragile. He leaves saying he warned her not to drink so quickly. She tells him to disappear, or she'll finish him off. He responds that she should know that if she keeps drinking that, she'll get diabetes and cavities. The Empress asks if she shouldn't drink it, and he slams the door, saying it's better not to. With that, she relaxes, saying she finally has a little peace. From outside, he shouts, reminding her not to forget that his number is first on the contact list. The Empress reflects that in her past world, everyone feared her. It's been a long time since she had someone care about her this much. Yui is back home, wondering where his brother has gone. He decides to flop on the couch since the day was exhausting and opens up that little game of his. He checks the group chat with his friends, who are talking about getting a good score. Yui asks to play, but suddenly, everyone claims to have stomach hacks and wants to leave. Apparently, Yui is one of those players who sinks the team, which is why no one wants to play with him. But someone called Old Maniacs says he'll be in town soon and asks if Yui wants to grab a meal tomorrow. Yui accepts and gets all excited. He reflects that he's been playing with Old Maniac for 3 or 4 years, but has never met him in person. Meanwhile, in his surveillance room, someone comments that they disappeared into his strange neighborhood. A bald guy says they went there to investigate, but there were no remains of the bodies. Another person replies not to worry because they already found a way to deal with that child. The next day, Yui is messaging his friend, saying he's waiting for him to arrive, all while thinking about the food he ordered. Then someone approaches. Is it Old Maniac? What's going on? Has the game flipped? Are girls now pretending to be old men? Yui tells the young woman that the table is already reserved. He starts to think she works for the bar and comments on how competitive the beverage market has become. But then she smiles and says she is Old Maniac. She shows their chat history, startling Yui. Feeling awkward, he asks if she's sure, pointing out that her voice sounds very different. The girl explains that people think she's very gullible and easily tricked, which is why she prefers to pretend to be an old man online. She says the one who introduced her was someone named Ling Ji, her sister. Yui comments that now it makes sense why he sometimes heard a woman's voice on Old Maniac's microphone. Feeling awkward, she asks him to stop calling her that, and says her name is Xiao Tu, and she'll be living in this city for a while. Later, by a lake, he asks if she isn't afraid of him since she came alone. She says he's overthinking because she feels safe, having trained since childhood. She's confident she could handle 3 or 5 guys on her own. Our boy says he understands, but he's still not used to the fact that his online friend turned out to be such a beautiful girl. She gets flustered, asking if he's talking about her, and starts lightly hitting a wall, telling him not to say such things without thinking. However, the girl is so strong that she causes the structure to collapse. She rushes to save him, and he thinks that dying like this wouldn't be so bad. And with that, she falls right on top of him. How many ribs broke? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his ribs. She apologizes, explaining that she has a special physique with superhuman strength and dense bones. She never imagined that falling on him would cause so much damage. Our boy prepares a technique and tells her to calm down, assuring her he can handle it. He reflects that it's a good thing he practiced those techniques, or he would have definitely died. Then her phone buzzes with a message, and she says her first request has finally arrived. She shows him an app called Xiaxiang and asks if he's familiar with it. He asks if it's the app where you can post missions for cultivators and warriors to duel over. After completing the mission, they earn the offer reward and accumulate hero points. She confirms and says her ultimate dream is to become the greatest heroine of all. She then shows him the mission, which is to take down someone who stole another man's girlfriend. She shows him the phone, and he says a bastard like that deserves to die. But then she asks why the target looks so much like him. Without hesitation, she almost slashes his head off. He dodges and tells her to calm down, insisting he never do something like that. But she ignores him and says since it's her first mission she can't fail, so he better stop dodging. She goes for a kick, but he sidesteps and asks why she's trying to kill her friend like this. Motivated, she just tells him to stop dodging and turn into the hero points she needs. He dodges again, and she seems puzzled by how he's always avoiding her attacks. The protagonist thinks that in his life, no woman ever comes easy. But since she wants to do things this way, he won't hold back. He uses instant step to appear behind her and prepares to use the Dao fist, almost blowing her away. She realizes she made a mistake trying to kill this guy. With that, she gets scared, and he earns the soul shock technique. This ability stuns the opponent, making them obey him for a while. Xiao Chu says her grandfather always told her that China has many hidden dragons, and now she sees there's no way she can defeat him. Yui tries to comfort her, saying not to worry because he's also been training since childhood. He says he only won because he caught her off guard, but she says she doesn't believe that, pointing out that the way he dodged her attacks was strange. She says she'll need to check him out, and he asks what she means by that. She starts poking his body, saying that if he's been training since childhood, there should be some marks. She lifts his shirt, telling him not to resist because he doesn't have a choice. Later, she asks what's going on because he's only been practicing for 3 months. He admits he felt the abilities he learned were special, but never imagined they'd be this powerful. Of course, we know he's only been practicing for 3 days, but he decides not to tell her that. Xiao Chu says with such talent, she can't wait to see what her grandfather thinks of him. Yui asks if she can figure out who was trying to kill him and assures her that she can trust he believes in true love and would never be disloyal. She says it's not possible to directly see who sent it, but she can try to set up a meeting. The scene shifts to a van parked on the street, with some men stepping out. A guy with gold earrings asks if the girl managed to complete her mission. Xiao Chu says yes, and he can do whatever he wants with the boy. Meanwhile, our protagonist finds it odd since he's never seen these people before. The man congratulates Xiao Chu, saying she'll get a 5-star review. At that moment, Yui asks the man if he's made a mistake since they've never met. But the man asks if Yui has already forgotten him after using him. Then he orders his men to take Yui down. 2 more guys show up carrying something suspicious. The man with the earrings says that today they'll take everything from the boy. One of them says he's handsome, so they'll enjoy doing whatever they want with him. Yui quickly realizes that either these people are acting in bad faith or they're being manipulated. He decides this is the perfect moment to use the technique he just acquired. He activates the soul shock technique and orders them to find out who sent the mission and deal with them instead. Xiao Chu asks if he's just going to let those people go. He replies that for now, it's the best solution. On the way home, she says she wanted to spend more time with him today, but unfortunately, she's getting calls and needs to leave. The protagonist says since she'll be staying in the city for a while, they can meet again later. She waves goodbye, saying they'll see each other soon. He watches as she gets scolded by her sister, wondering what his other friends will think when they find out the old maniac is a girl. Just then, he gets a call on his phone and remarks that she's finally learned to use the device. He answers and jokes that if she's been kidnapped, she should cuff twice. But the Empress responds that using a communication artifact is easy for her. She bluntly states that she wants him to accompany her to buy some clothes. In the next frame, they've already arrived at the store, and Yui is handing money to the taxi driver for the trouble Lin caused. When he suggested they stop a taxi, she kicked one of them, saying she was just following his instructions. He sighs and says whatever, then asks why she suddenly wants to buy so many clothes. She replies that she doesn't feel like wearing someone else's clothes forever. The store clerk asks if he's there to buy clothes for his girlfriend. Yui knows this is a sales tactic to charge more later, and clarifies that he's just there to carry her bags. Some guys nearby comment that it's impossible for someone like him to be getting a beauty like her. The clerk brings out a light dress, saying she'll love it, and then shows a Gucci jacket, claiming it never goes out of style. She asks Yui what the clerk is talking about. He explains that each outfit in his world is suited for different situations. She nods, saying she understands, and then asks if they have any tight latex outfits. The clerk looks awkward and asks what she's talking about. Confused, she looks at Yui and says she saw on his computer that he always searches for that kind of thing. Embarrassed, Yui tries to explain to the clerk that she means a superhero style, something strong-looking. That's why she mentioned latex. But the Empress says she only thought of wearing it because she assumed it was trendy since he always looked at it. But apparently, he doesn't want her to try it on. The nosy guys nearby are trying to figure out the relationship between the bag carrier and her. Meanwhile, Yui asks the clerk to bring something more appropriate. She agrees, and the Empress goes to change. She comes back wearing the outfit. The clerk immediately compliments her, saying she looks stunning. The Empress says it's similar to what she used to wear in her world and asks Yui what he thinks. The clerk explains it's from their vintage collection. She comments that she wanted something more classic and thinks it looks perfect. The Empress stands in front of the mirror and decides to buy it. Then she points to Yui, saying she'll pick something for him too. He's confused about why, but in the next scene, we see the protagonist looking almost exactly the same. No major changes.